canceled my mother-in-law's birthday dinner after they excluded me, and honestly, I don't regret it one bit. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Emily, I'm 32 years old, and I've been married to my husband, Daniel, for 6 years. We have a good life together, and for the most part, our relationship is solid. But there has always been one shadow hanging over us, his mother, Linda. From the very beginning, Linda made it clear that she never fully accepted me. At first, I thought I was overthinking it, but her words and actions have proven otherwise over the years. She has this way of slipping in comments that sting, even when she says them with a smile. She'll compare me to Daniel's ex-girlfriend, who apparently could do no wrong. And then she'll add something like, "But you're trying your best, dear." Those moments used to crush me, but I've learned to swallow my pride and let them pass. Family gatherings have always been a minefield. I try hard to keep the peace, even when I feel like an outsider in my own husband's family. It's exhausting, but I tell myself that I'm doing it for Daniel. He loves his mother, and I've never wanted to be the reason for distance between them. I cook, clean, plan, and host with a smile, even when I can feel Linda's eyes on me, judging every move. There are times when Daniel notices. He'll squeeze my hand under the table or give me a small smile as if to say, "I see you, and I know this is hard." Those little gestures have helped me push through. But just as often, he brushes it aside, asking me to let it go because that's just how Mom is. I've gone along with that for years, convincing myself that patience and kindness would eventually soften Linda's heart. Still, there's always a line I feel like I'm one step away from crossing. No matter how polite I am, I can tell Linda is waiting for me to slip up so she can prove I'm not good enough for her son. Sometimes I wonder if she actually enjoys watching me struggle to fit in, like it gives her a sense of control. I've stayed quiet for a long time, but I can't lie, it wears me down. I've caught myself questioning if I even belong at these dinners or family events. Yet I still keep showing up, telling myself it's the right thing to do. Deep down, though, there's always this ache, a reminder that no matter what I do, I'll never truly be part of her circle. What I didn't realize was that things were building up to a breaking point, and soon I'd find out just how far Linda was willing to go to make me feel excluded. That moment changed everything. When Linda's 62nd birthday started getting close, I decided I wanted to do something kind for her. No matter how she treated me, she was still my husband's mother, and I thought making the effort might help smooth things over. I suggested to Daniel that we take her out for a nice dinner instead of hosting something at home. He liked the idea, and for once I felt like maybe this could be a chance to show her I respected her and wanted her to feel celebrated. I took charge of the planning right away. I called around to find a restaurant that felt special, but not over the top. After a few calls, I settled on a place I knew Linda liked. They had a private dining room that I thought would be perfect for the family. I made the reservation under my name and confirmed everything with the manager. I wanted to make sure the night would be smooth, with no last-minute surprises. It didn't stop there. I went out and picked up flowers that I thought she would enjoy. Bright ones, the kind that bring energy into a room. I imagined placing them on the table before she arrived, making it clear the evening was about her. I even went out of my way to shop for a gift that would feel personal. I bought her a delicate necklace, something simple but thoughtful. I had it wrapped in a small box with a silver bow. It wasn't just a gift. It was my way of extending an olive branch. As I was pulling everything together, Daniel kept telling me I didn't need to go so far. He said his mom would appreciate it no matter what. But deep down, I wasn't sure. There was this nagging feeling I couldn't shake, like no matter what I did, it wouldn't be enough. Still, I kept telling myself that effort counts, that if I tried hard enough, maybe she'd finally see that I was on her side. On the surface, everything looked perfect. The dinner was set, the flowers were ready, and the gift was hidden away in the closet, waiting for the right moment. Daniel seemed relaxed about it, but I could feel this edge inside me, like a warning I couldn't quite put into words. Something just felt off. I brushed the thought aside and reminded myself that this was about respect. It wasn't about winning her approval or proving myself. It was about honoring her birthday and showing that, despite all the tension between us, I was willing to rise above it. I kept planning, hoping that maybe, just maybe, this dinner would be the start of things changing for the better. But life has a way of proving our instincts right, even when we don't want them to be. And as much as I tried to convince myself otherwise, that uneasy feeling I had in the pit of my stomach was about to make sense sooner than I expected. About a week before the dinner, I was walking down the hallway when I heard Daniel talking on the phone. His voice was low, but I caught my name, so I stopped without even thinking. He was speaking with his sister, Megan. At first, I assumed they were just going over details for the dinner, but the more I listened, the more my stomach dropped. Daniel said something like, Mom just wants it to be family this time. Then Megan replied, yeah, she feels like Emily doesn't really need to be. It's more of a family thing. My heart started racing. I pressed my hand against the wall because I felt like I might fall over. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were talking about me as if I was some stranger. They said my name wasn't on the guest list. I stood there frozen, trying to make sense of it. This was the dinner I had planned. I had called the restaurant, arranged the flowers, and bought the gift. I had done all of it, and now I wasn't even supposed to be part of it? I felt gutted. It was like a sharp punch to the chest. I thought about all the hours I'd spent making sure everything was perfect, all because I wanted Linda to feel special, and because I wanted to do right by Daniel's family. And yet, behind my back, they were cutting me out as if I didn't belong. I stayed quiet until Daniel got off the phone. My mind was spinning. I wanted to storm in and shout, but all I could do was sit down on the edge of the bed and stare at the floor. My hands were shaking. I kept asking myself, why? What had I done that was so terrible that I didn't even deserve a seat at the table? When Daniel came into the room, I looked at him differently. For the first time, I realized he had known. He wasn't shocked or caught off guard on the call. He was agreeing with Megan, as if this was all normal, as if pushing me aside for his mom was no big deal. That realization hurt worse than anything Linda had ever said to me. I thought about the necklace tucked away in the closet, about the flowers waiting to be arranged, about the reservation under my name. All of it suddenly felt like a cruel joke. I had poured myself into planning this night, and they had erased me from it like I didn't matter. I sat there, holding back tears, and for the first time in years of dealing with Linda's sharp tongue and cold looks, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just another slight I could swallow. This was betrayal, plain and simple. And I knew I couldn't let it pass this time. That night, after hearing the phone call, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I sat Daniel down in the living room, and I asked him straight out, "Did your mom really tell you not to invite me?" My voice was calm, but inside I was shaking. I needed to hear it from him, not just from what I overheard. He froze for a second, like he was trying to think of a way around it. His eyes darted away from mine, and that silence told me more than words ever could. Finally, he sighed and admitted, "She just thinks you can be a little controlling. She feels like you make everything about yourself sometime." It felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I stared at him, waiting for him to say more, to defend me, to tell me that wasn't true. But he didn't. He just sat there, almost avoiding my gaze, as if he'd already chosen his side. I reminded him of everything I had done for the dinner, the reservations, the flowers, the gift. I told him I had gone out of my way to make it special for his mom. I asked him how that could possibly be seen as controlling. He didn't answer right away, and when he finally did, it was weak. "She just feels like you take over things sometimes, Em. I don't want to argue with her about it." That's when it really hit me. He wasn't defending me because he didn't want to stand up to her. Instead of telling his mom she was being unfair, he chose to give in, to let her rewrite the story and make me the problem. The man who promised to be my partner, who should have had my back, was letting me stand alone. I felt my throat tighten, and for a moment I couldn't speak. I thought about all the times I had swallowed my pride to keep the peace. All the times I had told myself it was better not to push back. And here he was, confirming the one thing I'd always feared, that no matter what I did, his mother's opinion of me carried more weight than my place as his wife. I looked at him and said, "This isn't just about a dinner. Do you realize that?" He didn't answer, but I could see from the way his jaw tightened that he knew I was right. This wasn't about flowers or a restaurant reservation. It was about loyalty, respect, and whether or not he truly saw me as part of his family. In that moment, something inside me hardened. I loved Daniel, but I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. I wasn't just fighting his mother's dislike, I was fighting his silence. And that silence spoke louder than anything Linda could ever say. After that talk with Daniel, I sat in our bedroom for a long time. I stared at the necklace I had bought for his mom, still wrapped neatly in its box. I thought about the flowers I had planned to pick up and the table I had reserved. My chest felt heavy, like all the air had been pushed out of me. I had done everything out of respect, out of love for my husband, and in return I had been erased. I wanted to scream, to throw the box across the room, to demand answers that I knew I wouldn't get. But instead, a calm washed over me. It wasn't the calm of peace, it was the calm of decision. I picked up my phone, dialed the restaurant, and asked to cancel the reservation. The woman on the line confirmed it was under my name, and within seconds it was gone. I didn't explain anything to Daniel. I didn't leave a note or mention it in passing. I simply took back what I had created. I had set everything up, and now I was the one who would take it away. If they didn't want me at the table, then there would be no table. When I hung up the phone, I sat in silence, trying to process the mix of feelings running through me. My heart was broken, that much was true. I wanted to cry because of how unwanted I felt, because of how easy it was for Daniel to let his mother's opinion outweigh me. But under the sadness, there was also a spark of strength. For once, I wasn't just swallowing the pain. I was making a choice, one that put me first. It wasn't about being petty. It wasn't about revenge for the sake of revenge. It was about standing up for myself in the only quiet way I knew how. If they thought I didn't belong, then they didn't deserve the effort I had given. It was as simple as that. As I put my phone down, I felt a strange sort of relief. No one else knew what I had done. Daniel still thought the dinner was set, and his mother and sister would walk into that restaurant expecting a celebration. I pictured them showing up, asking for the reservation, and being told it didn't exist. For once, they would feel the sting of disappointment, the same sting I had carried for years. I didn't smile at the thought, but I didn't regret it either. It wasn't cruelty, it was justice in the smallest, quietest form. I reminded myself of one truth. If I wasn't welcome, then neither was the dinner I had poured my heart into. That night, as I lay in bed beside Daniel, I kept the secret to myself. He drifted off to sleep, none the wiser, while I stared at the ceiling. I didn't know what the fallout would be, but I knew I could live with it. For once, I had chosen me. The night of Linda's birthday finally came. Daniel put on a clean shirt, fixed his hair, and left the house with a quick goodbye. He didn't ask me to come along, and I didn't offer. I just wished him a safe drive, my voice steady, even though my chest ached. The door closed behind him, and the house fell into silence. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat by the window, the lights dimmed. The street outside was calm, but my mind was alive, picturing what was happening across town. I knew exactly what time they would arrive at the restaurant. I knew the moment Linda and the others walked up to the host's stand and gave my reservation name, only to be told it wasn't there. The restaurant I had chosen was one of the most popular in town. It stayed packed on weekends, and this night was no different. Walk-ins weren't possible. Even regulars needed weeks of notice. I imagined the confusion on Daniel's face when the host shook their head. I pictured Megan stepping forward, insisting there must be a mistake, and then the realization hitting them that nothing had been booked. And Linda, her face must have turned red with anger. She had probably been expecting to walk into a beautiful dinner, surrounded by her family, celebrated as the center of attention. Instead, she was left standing in a crowded lobby, waiting for something that wasn't coming. I knew her pride would be burning, and for once, the control she always clung to would slip right through her hand. As the minutes passed, I sipped my wine slowly, letting the quiet of the house wrap around me. I didn't smile, but I didn't feel guilty either. They had made their choice when they cut me out. This was just the natural consequence. The dinner they didn't want me at simply no longer existed. I could almost hear the arguments spilling out at that restaurant. Linda snapping at Daniel, asking how he could have messed this up. Daniel fumbling for excuses, too embarrassed to admit he hadn't actually made the plans himself. Megan rolling her eyes, blaming anyone but her mother. The thought didn't bring me joy, but it did bring me peace. For once, the chaos wasn't on my shoulders. Back at home, I curled up on the couch, the glass resting on the table beside me. The air was still, the kind of stillness that feels earned. I thought about how many times I had bent over backward to keep everyone else happy, how many times I had put myself last to avoid conflict. Tonight, I had done the opposite. I had chosen silence, distance, and a little bit of justice. By the time I finished my wine, I knew the night at the restaurant had ended in disaster. And while they scrambled to figure it out, I sat in my own home, steady and calm, knowing exactly how it had all unfolded. It was late when I finally heard the front door slam. Daniel came in with heavy steps, his face red with anger. He didn't even sit down before he started in on me. His voice was sharp as he said, "I can't believe you would do something so petty, Emma. Do you know how embarrassed I was tonight?" Everyone was looking at me like it was my fault. I stayed seated on the couch, my hands folded in my lap. His anger didn't surprise me, but the words still stung. He wasn't asking me why, he wasn't trying to understand, he was accusing. I took a slow breath and kept my voice steady. "I only canceled plans I was never invited to," I said. "Why would I throw a party for people who don't even want me there?" For a moment, he just stared at me, like he didn't know how to respond. His mouth opened, then closed again. I could see the wheels turning in his head, but no words came out. It was the first time in a long time that he didn't have a defense ready. I went on, my tone calm but firm. "I made those plans because I thought it mattered. I put time, money, and effort into making sure your mom had a special night. And all along, you and your sister were talking about how I shouldn't even be there. You knew, Daniel. You knew, and you said nothing." He rubbed the back of his neck, pacing the room like he was trying to find something, anything, that would make this look less terrible. But there was nothing to find. The truth sat between us, heavy and undeniable. "I didn't want to fight," he muttered. "I just thought it would be easier this way." "Easier for who?" I asked, my voice rising just a little. "For you? For your mom?" because it sure wasn't easier for me. Do you have any idea what it feels like to be erased from my own plans? To be told, without words, that I don't belong in my own husband's family? His face softened then, like he wanted to show sympathy, but it was too late. He had made his choice long before this night. I leaned back, my voice quiet again. You can call it petty if you want, but the truth is, I just stopped giving to people who didn't value me. If I'm not welcome, then neither is the dinner I planned. Silence filled the room. For once, Daniel didn't argue, didn't make excuses, didn't defend his mother. He just stood there, staring at the floor. And in that silence, I realized he finally saw what I had seen all along, that this wasn't just about one dinner. This was about respect and the lack of it. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Megan. I thought about ignoring it, but something told me to pick up. Her voice came through sharp and cold. I can't believe you did that, Emily. Do you know how childish you looked? You ruined Mom's birthday. I held the phone steady, listening to her vent, and when she finally paused for air, I spoke. My tone was calm but firm. You want to talk about childish? What's childish is excluding someone from their own spouse's family gathering. I didn't ruin anything. That was done the moment you and your mom decided I wasn't good enough to be there. There was silence on her end for a beat, then a scoff. You always twist things, she snapped before hanging up. I set the phone down and let out a slow breath. My hands weren't shaking this time. For once, I hadn't let her words stick. I had pushed back, and it felt strangely freeing. It didn't take long before word spread through the rest of the family. A cousin texted me later that day, asking what had really happened. I kept my answer simple. I had planned a dinner, wasn't invited, and so I canceled it. That was all. I didn't trash Linda. I didn't rant. I just told the truth. Over the next few days, I got a few quiet messages from extended family members. An aunt wrote that she wasn't surprised, that Linda had always tried to control everything and everyone. A cousin said she admired me for finally standing up to her. Even one of Daniel's uncles reached out, saying he'd seen Linda's behavior for years, but no one ever wanted to challenge her. Those small words of support didn't erase the hurt, but they softened it. For so long, I had felt like I was the only one who saw the way Linda treated me. To know that others had noticed, that they understood, gave me a sense of validation I hadn't expected. Still, it wasn't victory that I felt most strongly. It was sadness. Sadness that the one person who should have stood up for me didn't. I thought back to Daniel's face when I told him why I canceled the dinner. That silence, that lack of defense, was louder than anything his family could say. I didn't regret my choice. But it hurt to realize that while some people in the family quietly supported me, my own husband had failed to protect me when it mattered most. That thought stayed with me, heavy and sharp, even as I tried to take comfort in the small vindication I'd finally earned. The weeks after the canceled dinner were strangely quiet. Linda didn't call, didn't text, didn't even send a message through Megan. It was as if I had been cut off completely, and honestly, I didn't mind the silence. Still, I could feel the tension sitting heavy in the air between Daniel and he carried it around like a weight, walking on eggshells, pretending everything was normal when it clearly wasn't. At first, he tried to smooth things over. He'd make small comments like, "Mom just needs time," or, "She'll come around eventually." He wanted me to let it slide, to move past it the way I had so many times before. But this time was different. I wasn't willing to swallow it down anymore. One night, after another strained dinner where we barely spoke, I finally told him the truth. "Daniel," I said, my voice steady, "if you can't stand up for me, then you're standing against me." He looked at me like I had slapped him. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the part of him that wanted to defend his mother and the part that knew I was right. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, just like the night after the dinner. Silence followed, thick and uncomfortable. I didn't push him for an answer. I just let the words hang there, because they were true. His loyalty couldn't be split forever. He couldn't keep trying to please his mother while ignoring the pain it caused me. Every time he chose not to speak up, he was choosing her side. The days stretched on, filled with short conversations and long silences. Daniel went about his routines, but I could see the weight pressing on him. He avoided phone calls from Megan when I was in the room, and he didn't mention Linda at all. It was like he hoped that if he ignored it, the storm would blow over. But storms don't just disappear when the damage has already been done. I kept busy, focusing on my work, on small things around the house, on myself. But underneath, I was carrying a mix of sadness and strength. Sadness that the man I loved was failing me in this way, and strength because I finally knew I wasn't going to bend anymore. Every night, when we lay in bed, the silence between us felt louder than words. I could feel him turning things over in his mind, trying to find a way to balance it all. But there was no balance left. This wasn't just about keeping the peace. It was about respect, and about whether or not he was truly my partner. And deep down, I think he knew it too. He just hadn't decided which truth he was ready to face, his mother's demands or his wife's worth. In the weeks that followed, I thought a lot about what had happened. There were moments when I questioned myself, wondering if I had gone too far by canceling the dinner. But every time that doubt crept in, I reminded myself of the truth. I didn't cancel that dinner out of spite. I canceled it because my effort, my respect, and even my place in the family weren't valued. Why should I pour myself into something for people who had already decided I didn't belong? It wasn't about ruining Linda's night, even if that's how she and Megan chose to see it. It was about reclaiming my dignity, about drawing a line that had been ignored for far too long. For years, I had tried to win her over, bending and twisting myself to fit into a space that was never meant to hold me. All it did was leave me feeling smaller, invisible, and tired. That night, for the first time, I refused to play that role. The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. Linda's refusal to speak to me wasn't punishment. It was proof. Proof that no matter what I had done, her view of me would never change. And Megan's harsh words were just more evidence of a family that valued control and appearances over fairness and acceptance. What stung the most wasn't their rejection, it was Daniel's silence. That wound ran deeper than anything his mother could say. I had always hoped he would stand beside me, shield me when his family pushed me aside. But when the moment came, he chose to step back instead. That is something I won't forget. Still, I carry no anger now. Just clarity. I see things as they are, without the fog of hope blurring the edges. I know my worth, and I know it doesn't depend on Linda's approval or Megan's judgment. My value doesn't shrink because someone else refuses to see it. The dinner was never just a dinner. It was a symbol of every time I tried to prove myself, every time I put in the work and swallowed the hurt. By canceling it, I wasn't erasing their celebration. I was erasing the idea that I had to keep proving myself to people who would never accept me. So I've made a promise to myself. I will never again fight to belong where I'm not wanted. I'll give my energy and my love to those who see me, who respect me, who value me for who I am. Anything less isn't worth the cost. Sometimes the strongest move isn't yelling, isn't fighting, isn't trying harder. Sometimes it's stepping back, folding your hands, and letting people choke on the emptiness they created for themselves. And that's exactly what I did.